So when you're applying to college, you're probably going to end up taking the SAT or the ACT, unless you end up applying to a place that does not require a test, in which case, lucky you. You can Google the difference between these two tests. Honestly, a huge difference between them is just like where you live in the country. So for whatever reason, if you live in the middle of the country, the ACT is typically the test you take. So I grew up in Minnesota. Everybody took the ACT. I can't tell you why the test is more popular in certain areas of the country. I guess all the College Board sales reps just ended up hanging out in the middle of the country. I don't know. Is the ACT the College Board? Oh no, the College Board owns the SAT. Who owns the ACT? Nexus Capital Management, a Los Angeles-based investment firm.
What?
ACT, a nonprofit testing company that admissions examined 100,000 acquired by Nexus Capital Management, an investment firm. Okay, none of that matters. All that matters is the SAT is out of 1,600 points, and the ACT is out of 36 points. That does not mean that there's 1,600 questions on the SAT and only 36 questions on the ACT. It just means they're out of different numbers of points. So what's a college to do? If they get admissions materials from people who took the ACT versus the SAT, how are they supposed to compare what are basically apples to oranges? So let's take a look at some actual ACT and SAT scores from actual people. You might recognize some of these people. Not her. You don't recognize her. We got Kesha. We got Natalie Portman. We've got John Cena. Can you see him? Is that the thing? Is that the John Cena thing? And we have me. 18-year-old me. Kesha and Natalie Portman both took the SAT. Their scores were 1,500 and 1,400 respectively. I took the ACT. I got a 30. And John Cena took the ACT. He got a 20. Although he claims that when he took it a second time, he got a perfect 36. Just a quick disclaimer. Your test score does not define you. It doesn't actually matter how well you do in these tests. You are much more than a test score. In high school, we took the PSAT because we had to, and I didn't prepare at all because I thought the P stood for practice. So I was just like, yeah, let's just see how it goes. And then afterwards, all my friends started getting nominated for the National Merit Scholarship, and I was like, nice, guys, how'd you do that? And they were like, we got good PSAT scores. And I was like, the P stood for practice. Okay, so the main problem with these two different types of tests is that they're out of different numbers of points. One way we can compare the apples to oranges is by looking at percentiles. So let's start with Kesha. Her score was a 1,500, almost perfect. She's in the 98th percentile of SAT test takers. That means that she did better on the SAT than 98% of people who took it. Yeah, if you didn't know, Kesha is smart. Natalie Portman, another super smart celebrity. She got a 1,400. That's the 93rd percentile. She scored better than 93% of people who took the SAT. Now we get over here to the ACT people. My 30 on the ACT is in the 93rd percentile, which means I scored better than 93% of ACT test takers. What this means is, even though Natalie Portman and I took different tests, we both scored better than 93% of people who took our respective tests. And, you could say that I'm just as successful as Natalie Portman. You could say it. It wouldn't be true, but you could say it. And then John Cena over here, the first time that he took the ACT was in the 52nd percentile, and allegedly the second time got a perfect score, and so was probably smarter than Kesha. So that's the first way we can describe a location in a data set, by looking at the percentile. Another way we can describe location is by comparing our data points to the mean. So let's start with Natalie Portman. Let's say the mean SAT score is 1059 and the standard deviation is 210. The question is, how far above the mean is Natalie? Well, if I take her 1,400 and I subtract the mean, 1059, I can see that she is 341 points above the mean. Now that's impressive. We can tell that she's above the mean. That's good. Without the standard deviation, we don't know how impressive that is. Remember, the standard deviation tells you the typical distance that data points are from the mean. So we know that most students scored within 210 points of the mean. That makes Natalie's score a lot more impressive. She was well beyond what the typical student was scoring. If someone was only 10 points above the mean, that's not as impressive because 210 is the standard deviation. Most students were within that 210 points of the mean. So only being 10 above is not like as impressive as Natalie Portman. Not many things are. Okay, back over to me with the ACT. So let's say the mean ACT score is 21 and the standard deviation is 5. How far above the mean did I score? Well, I can take 30 minus 21. I scored 9 points above the mean. Is that impressive? We can't really tell until we look at the standard deviation. If the standard deviation is 5, then yeah, that's pretty impressive. Most students scored within 5 of the mean, and 9 points is above that. So to describe location in a data set, we have percentile and we have distance from the mean. But there's a problem with distance from the mean. It's not actually useful for comparing two people from two different groups. Like, knowing Natalie Portman was 341 points above the mean doesn't help me compare her to me being 9 points above the mean, because we took 2 different tests. They're out of 2 different totals. Percentile was a great way for us to compare, but just looking at the distance from the mean is not a great way to compare two people from 2 different groups. But you know what we could use? I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let you watch the next video and find out on your own. Was that a good cliffhanger?